What would a Bethesda game be without awesome storytelling? What would a Bethesda game be without unique quests or immersive world building? What would a Bethesda game be without mediocre combat or hilarious and sometimes game-breaking bugs? Bethesda games have carved their very own niche in the gaming landscape, representing a unique blend of first-person shooter, role-playing and simulation elements in their games. Over the years, Bethesda have graced us with an impressive array of titles, hailing from their globally acclaimed franchises. We've journeyed through the mythical realms of Morrowind, Oblivion and Skyrim in the Elder Scrolls series, and explored the post-apocalyptic wasteland in Fallout 1-4 and even Fallout 76, which leaves us wondering, where the hell are the other 70 Fallout games? The latest addition into the Bethesda repertoire, of course, is Starfield, which made its debut on September 6, 2023. Starfield is the latest release from Bethesda and, in their own words, the first new universe from the Bethesda studios in over 25 years. In this next-generation role-playing game set amongst the stars, create any character you want and explore with unparalleled freedom, as you embark on an epic journey to answer humanity's greatest mystery. A fresh, new franchise from Bethesda, this is exciting news. Is it going to be the next Skyrim, the next Fallout 3, Oblivion? Well, let's find out. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. This video took much longer than I had originally anticipated, mainly due to the vast amount of content that I was diving into. Join me as we embark on an immersive journey through the Starfield universe. We'll explore every single facet of the game, take a look at the main story, its side quests and the mechanics, and address the burning question, is it good? So buckle yourself into your cockpits and grab a drink because this one's going to be a long one. It's May 7th, 2330, a time when humanity has transcended Earth and achieved mastery over the cosmos itself. Our journey commences as an unfamiliar newcomer on Vectera, a moon orbiting the nearby planet of Ansalon within the Narian system. We've just joined the ranks of the Argos Extraction Mining Company with our guide and supervisor, Lynn, and Hella, our dusty co-worker, both of whom are here to show us the ropes on the second day of the job. As we descend into the mining shaft, Lynn advises us to stay close and follow her instructions. Great, I'm sure we can do that without any issues, right? The elevator takes us to the depth of the mining shaft and Lynn prompts us to grab a mining laser from the nearby equipment cache to get to work. So that's exactly what we do.
Metal deposits are in that cavern. I'll shout out when I need you.
But mining in Starfield is straightforward enough. Approach a deposit of rocks and blast away until the minerals pop out. Mining is a core mechanic of Starfield, which we'll look at in a bit more detail later on, but for now, task complete. Once we've done that, Lynn shouts back and tells us to return to her and announces that we're heading deeper into the mine. We regroup and locate Hella, who can be found diligently carving a path through the mine shaft with this massive mining drill. And no, that's not a euphemism. As we get back, Hella reports a large fluctuation in gravity readings nearby, which raises some concern. However, Lynn reassures him that such gravitational spikes are to be expected. We're assigned the guinea pig job of scouting ahead into the new mineshaft and are told to shout if anything goes wrong. But wait, why would anything go wrong? What exactly are we searching for and what's causing these gravity disturbances? Well, we're about to find out. As we navigate deeper to our destination, we find ourselves in a vast hollowed out cave with what initially appears to be mineral outcrops on the walls, a promising discovery. As we creep closer, we find that these peculiar outcrops aren't minerals at all and they're not in the walls, they're suspended in mid-air. I mean, I know we're 200 years in the future, but this can't be normal, right? We get to work cracking open the mineral deposit with our trusty mining laser and extract an unusual metallic crust. But no sooner than when we grab it, an onslaught of music, sound, light and visual effects swarm our vision and then darkness envelops us. What happened? Did we pass out? We eventually awake to the sound of Lynn's voice urging us to wake up. What the hell just happened? We're alive at least, but I don't really remember much, and from here we're presented with the character creation screen. Creating your character in Starfield closely mirrors the familiar process found in other Bethesda games. It's surprisingly intricate and offers ample opportunity for you to invest hours meticulously shaping and sculpting your character just the way you want it. Starting with one of the 40 preset facial options, you have the freedom to fine-tune various aspects of your character, such as gender, facial structure, hair color, and style. And of course, some players wasted absolutely no time crafting their own perfect renditions of Todd Howard within the game on its very first day, so congratulations to whoever did this. Cosmetic options aside, Starfield's character creator also enables you to shape your character's backgrounds and traits, which have some minor gameplay impact. The background feature offers a selection of 21 distinct options, essentially working as a class system from other games. Your chosen background will shape your character's backstory by giving you a selection of 3 starting perks, which grow as you level up. The backstory you choose will also influence various dialogue options in the game as well, adding a nice nuanced touch to the overall narrative of Starfield. For my character, I went with the Beast Hunter backstory, which gives me the gastronomy, ballistics and fitness perks to start with, due to the knowledge and experience that my character has with combat and fighting alien beasts. The trait system is similar to the background, which gives you the option of picking 3 traits from a choice of 17 total options. For our character, we choose the Empath trait, which enhances our rapport with our companions. Any dialogue choices that align with our companion's current personality grant a small buff to combat effectiveness, and vice versa for negative choices. We also choose to go with the Kid Stuff perk, which requires us to send a small sum of our total cash home to our parents each week, and even provides us with a side quest for us to visit our parents later down the line. The trait system is an interesting way to set your character apart from others, and there's a good amount of choices here, from starting with a house which requires a mortgage upkeep, and even the hero worship trait which gives you a companion resembling the adoring fan from Oblivion. Amazing. And finally, we're ready to set sail across the stars with our newly born Todd Howard. You have no idea how much I regretted not making my character look like Todd Howard for this playthrough. Once we finish making our character, we talk to Lynn again, and she tells us that we got what we came for. But hold on, that weird floating rock was really what we came here to get? Lynn tells us that this little chunk of rock is worth more than the income of the entire mine in a month. But the question lingers, what on earth is this rock all about? Before she has a chance to explain, a virtual knock on the door disrupts our conversation and a buzzer alerts us to a visitor. Lynn informs us that the Constellation Explorer group has arrived, eager to purchase the mysterious rock. Accompanied by Lynn and Hella, we make our way to the surface to rendezvous with the Explorer group. But before we go, we're instructed to don our deep mining space helmet, so we navigate to our inventory and equip it. I can't help but wonder why they decided to call it the deep mining space helmet instead of the more logical deep space mining helmet, but maybe I'm just being pedantic. The inventory system in Starfield will feel familiar to anyone who's played a Bethesda game in the past. To access your inventory, press Tab if you're playing on PC, and navigate to the bottom right corner of the screen. Items are neatly arranged into categories covering everything from ammunition, armor and weapons to medical items and crafting materials. Each item is assigned a weight value which factors into your total carry weight, and a price value which is used to determine how many credits an item is worth to traders. You also have a miscellaneous section which collects the junk that you find on your travels. And don't lie, I know we all love to fill our inventory with as much crap as we can carry. Overloading your inventory and surpassing your carry weight causes you to become over-encumbered, which hampers your mobility and causes you to exert more oxygen, or basically stamina, when moving around. So make sure you sell all of those tin cans and random decorations you stole from poor NPCs as often as possible. Armor and weapons in Starfield also have specific attributes, which contribute to their overall effectiveness in combat. Armor provides mitigation against various types of damage, split between ballistic, energy and electromagnetic damage, which is calculated based on its respective armor value. Armor offers resistances to specific types of environmental damage, including thermal, airborne, corrosive and radiation. These resistances prove crucial when exploring various planets and biomes, each with their own conditions and environmental threats. Weapons in Starfield share a similar categorization to armor, falling into three primary types: ballistic, energy and electromagnetic. These weapons inflict different types of damage depending on their type and the ammunition used. Each weapon boasts a range of stats which encompass how well a weapon operates, such as the magazine capacity, which indicates how many bullets a clip can hold, the fire rate, which dictates the weapon's firing speed, range, which defines the optimal distance for maximum damage output, and lastly accuracy, which inflicts how often you'll hit the target. Weapons and armor also have mods which affect the stats and change how they operate. Finally, with our helmet equipped, we push open the door and step out into the arid mountain terrain of Vectera. And I've got to say, this place is a visual treat with its dusty ambience and awesome god rays poking through the gaps in the distant chilly grey mountain peaks, the sun's intense glare nearly blinding us, courtesy of the moon's lack of atmosphere. While it might not match the grandeur of Fallout 4's vault opening scene, it's still undeniably striking. Let's just hope we don't have to endure this scene over and over again, like that horse and cart scene from Skyrim's tutorial, which has been forever etched into my poor brain. Thankfully, the Starfield tutorial quest is pretty quick and doesn't last that long, and eventually New Game Plus skips this section entirely, but we'll get back to that way later on. As we soak in the breathtaking scenery, a spacecraft descends and touches down onto the nearby landing pad. We make our way towards the arriving visitors, and a man emerges, accompanied by an intriguing little bipedal robot named Vasco. This little guy reminds me of something out of Metal Gear Solid. The man introduces himself as Barrett, a member of the world-renowned Constellation group, and I've got to say, this guy might be my favourite character in the whole game, and we'll get a chance to properly meet him later. Supervisor Lynn informs Barrett that we've located the rare mineral that he's been after, even mentioning our slight loss of consciousness after extracting it. Barrett doesn't delve too much into the details, but honestly, we don't care. We're just here for the cash, right? Just as we're about to hand over the delivery, Vasco alerts the group to an approaching presence nearby. As another nearby ship lands, one of the mining crew identify it as a vessel of the infamous Crimson Fleet, a notorious space pirate gang, and it appears that Barrett may have unintentionally lured them here. With their arrival, the whole mining base erupts into a red alert, and we're forced into our first firefight and taste of combat in Starfield. We rush over to the nearby weapons station and grab a med pack and a weapon from it. Just a basic ballistic pistol for now, but we'll get our hands on some better gear later. As the pirates make their landing, we take cover nearby a supply cache and prime our weapons for action. A big fight breaks out between the pirates and the mining colony, and we thankfully manage to hold our ground. This is quite an engaging introductory battle between the pirates spilling out of their spaceships, storming the starport, and the miners joining forces, wielding whatever weapons they can muster, from small ballistic pistols to mining lasers. I can't imagine the pain of being on the receiving end of one of those lasers. It sounds pretty painful. Honestly, combat in Starfield isn't that bad at all. It easily surpasses Skyrim in both melee and range combat, and is as good if not better than Fallout 4. The gunplay is fluid and smooth, and the animations, weight and feel of the weapons is satisfying and works well. Starfield does have a little bit of an issue when it comes to bullet sponge enemies, but a lot of similar looter-shooter games like previous Bethesda titles and Borderlands also have this issue, so I won't chastise it too heavily for this. And I'm 99% sure that mods will be released in the future to change this, to apply more damage output to weapons if that's more of your cup of tea. After a hard-fought battle, we emerge victorious and the pirates make their hasty retreat. We approach Barrett to discuss recent events. Oddly, he doesn't seem the least bit perturbed by the huge skirmish which just broke out, and inquires about the visions we had when interacting with the mineral we dug out earlier. Visions? You mean when we saw the expanse of space accompanied by the symphony of sound before passing out? Yeah, I think I saw some visions. Barrett tells us to make our way to the Constellation headquarters immediately, emphasizing that we're now entangled in this enigmatic journey. Eager to leave this rocky moon behind, we hastily agree to join him on the new adventure, and so our journey begins. There's just one little hiccup. Lynn is absolutely furious over what just happened and firmly tells Barrett that he's got to stay behind to rectify the chaos in his wake. Barrett proposes a solution and suggests that we take his place and journey to the Constellation headquarters while he stays behind. I mean, that sounds pretty good for me, but why would he want to make such a sacrifice on our sake? Barrett explains that our connection to the artifact has marked an integral part of an unfolding story, and there must be something significant about what we've yet to comprehend. Lynn begrudgingly agrees with this plan, and Barrett directs Vasco to ensure our safety to the lodge. Before we depart, Barrett entrusts us with his ship and gives us a watch which forms a part of our heads-up display. So, off we go. With Vasco in tow, we set sail for the lodge. This marks our first maiden voyage of space travel in Starfield, and the spaceship Barrett lends us the frontier. Inside the ship, we have the freedom to navigate around the decks and the cockpit, which is a nice thoughtful detail. In the later stages of the game, we'll have ships with different sizes and layouts, and we'll be able to witness our companions, the crew, taking their designated positions aboard the ship. For the time being, we settle into the pilot's seat and prepare to take off and chart a course towards the lodge. Space travel in Starfield has quickly become a somewhat contentious topic within the game's community. Many players had high hopes for an Elite Dangerous or No Man's Sky style immersive space travel experience, but unfortunately that's not what Starfield delivers. Going into the game with very little prior knowledge, I expected at least some form of space travel, but the reality is that the majority of it occurs through fast travel loading screens. You simply select your destination on the universe map, plot your course, and away you go. While this isn't a severe drawback for the game itself, it is pretty disappointing, especially considering games of similar scope and size have successfully achieved immersive real-time space travel, even as far back as the release of No Man's Sky in 2016. In the case of Starfield, it's unclear if this feature was even considered during the hefty decades of development time. The game does offer space combat, which we'll touch on shortly, but for now our journey unfolds through a modicum of cutscenes. Once we reach orbit in our new ship, Vasco introduces us to space travel and ship navigation. He explains that travel over long distances between planets or solar systems requires the use of a grav drive and informs us that we need to power it up. This system is reminiscent of faster than light and allows us to allocate power to the various segments of our ship, from engines to shields, weapons and the grav drive itself. After allocating power to the grav drive and preparing for takeoff, our plans are abruptly interrupted by another ship which intercepts and attacks us, another member of the Crimson Fleet. It appears that we've not only inherited Barrett's ship, but also his enemies as well. Space combat in Starfield leans more towards simplicity than realistic space simulators, so if you're expecting anything like Elite Dangerous, then you're going to be a bit disappointed. That being said, there are some nuances and advanced mechanics that come into play later. Your ship's performance is influenced by the power allocated to the various systems. For instance, reducing power to your weapon modules results in a slower laser fire, extended recharge times, reduced engine speed, and slower missile recharging times. Engaging in direct confrontation with enemies requires you to lock onto them, a process which takes a few seconds when they're inside your crosshairs. Space combat comes with a few tactical subtleties, and it's crucial to choose the right weapon for the situation. Laser weapons excel at depleting the enemy's shields, but are less effective at delivering hull damage. Ballistic cannons, on the other hand, shine when shields are down, tearing through the enemy hull with ease. Missiles can be used to deliver substantial damage, but requires you to lock onto the target, which takes a couple seconds. Missiles also recharge slower, so should be used sparingly. In the later stages of the game, you'll also get access to EMP weaponry, which is invaluable for disrupting the enemy systems, allowing you to strategically disable shields, weapons, or engines. As you progress, you'll have the opportunity to unlock various pilot perks to allow you to conduct nimble thruster maneuvers to evade enemy attacks and to outmaneuver foes in dogfights. With the right perks, you can even unlock the targeting system, which allows you to target specific areas of an enemy ship, either disabling their weapons for an easier battle, or crippling their engines to enable you to board them for a more personal approach. The targeting system in space combat in Starfield operates similar to the facet system in Fallout, but requires you to unlock the ability through pilot-based level up perks. Upon defeating an enemy ship, you'll have the chance to loot it for any items still worth salvaging inside the wreckage. As someone who's not particularly enthusiastic about space simulators, space combat wasn't my primary focus, but I find it to be relatively straightforward and simple to understand. It adds a good amount of depth to the game's mechanics overall, and I'm glad it was implemented. With the enemy pirate ships obliterated, we continue our quest, and Vasco informs us that the Crimson Fleet are after the Frontier, the ship that we're currently piloting, and will continue to make us an ongoing target. He suggests that we chart a course for their nearby Crimson Fleet base and launch a retaliatory strike against the pirates. This whole sequence effectively continues the tutorial and introduces us to space travel and combat, and works really well to keep things immersive and engaging. Beyond its mechanics, Starfield does an outstanding job of capturing the beauty and grandeur of space. The planets themselves look visually stunning, and observing your character manipulating various controls and buttons in the cockpit contributes to the overall immersive experience. That is, until you move and get bombarded with cutscenes. So we embark on our journey to the nearby planet of Crete to confront the pirates head on. Upon arriving, we select a spot and land nearby the target pirate base. The planet's visuals are captivating, with drab, washed out colours contrasted nicely with deep brown hues of plant life. The overall universe of Starfield has a seamless blend of procedurally generated content combined with the classic Bethesda world building. Locations like towns, cities and other main areas are handcrafted, while the planets themselves have locations that are randomly generated. One player might encounter a completely different location on the same planet to another player, and this extends to both the main quest and side quests too. Throughout my time with Starfield, I was never disappointed with the majority of locations, and there is a good amount of purposely built areas to explore, and Starfield oozes that classic Bethesda world-building charm. If you're familiar with other RPG games, you'll be right at home here. The core gameplay revolves around exploration, scavenging and combat, a hallmark of other Bethesda titles. The immersive world draws you in with its interesting characters and scenery, and keeps you engaged with its core gameplay loops, and of course, I can't resist hoovering up every single item within my grasp. We head to the front door and step inside, only to discover that this facility is actually a research laboratory, which must have been overrun by pirates. Once inside, we take the opportunity to test out our torch, which illuminates the surroundings perfectly, a refreshing change from the nauseating green glow of the Pip-Boy from Fallout 4. This light source not only provides better visibility, but also maintains a nice natural hue. Well done, Bethesda. I'm glad that you've proved that flashlights really aren't that hard to do. As we explore the lower levels of the facility, the interior design and graphics really start to shine, with interactable objects on the tables and shelves, plenty of nooks and crannies to explore and discover, and the graphics and look of internal buildings really embodies that hallmark of a classic Bethesda game while sporting new and fresh modern aesthetic. As we navigate up the stairs to the upper levels of the facility, we overhear a conversation between two enemy pirates. They haven't seen us yet, so the game suggests that we try out the sneaking mechanic. Unfortunately, I'm terrible at stealth games, so I immediately blow my cover and get into a firefight. We'll talk about stealth a bit later. Fortunately, this is an easy fight, and our enemies go down with a little help from our new pistol. One of the pirates charges at us using a melee axe, and we take him down without much trouble. Instinctively, I loot his lifeless body before he's even hit the floor, and we grab out the axe to try out later. We loot the rest of the bodies and find a nice red Charger spacesuit, which looks like an upgrade from our previous spacesuit, so we put it on. We also find a new space pack, a valuable backslot item which not only provides oxygen but also boosts our combat stats. I know that this pack provides oxygen because I almost suffocate when taking off my old pack to equip the new one, so note to self, don't remove your backpack in the middle of space. Interestingly, in Starfield, characters don't always drop the items that they're wearing when they're defeated, like in older titles. This means that you can't just kill the biggest, baddest enemy wearing full Daedric armor and become a god in seconds. The loot that you obtain from enemy corpses is often randomized based on the items they're carrying, and I quite like this. It stops you from becoming overpowered after one single fight. But I know a lot of people like this realistic feature from Skyrim and Fallout, so this might be a touchy subject. It also begs the question, will this style of looting only specific items from enemies affect the release of those mods? You know which ones I mean. I'm sure modders will find a way if they haven't already. So far, the inventory system is miles better than anything we saw in Skyrim and Fallout 4, and it seems to draw a lot of inspiration from the Sky UI mod in Skyrim, which introduced a cleaner, more user-friendly UI. The developers have also continued the trend of adding animations to containers and doors, which originally came from a mod in Skyrim. It's great to see Bethesda still continuing to adapt and incorporate the innovations added by modders in previous games. As we continue to fight our way through the research lab, I take the time to try out my new rescue axe, and honestly, melee combat feels pretty good in Starfield. It's similar to Skyrim but packs more oomph and feels more visceral and weighty. Continuing our exploration, we stumble across a cache of credits which I immediately claim as my own, along with a digipick. These futuristic tools essentially serve as lockpicks from older Bethesda titles like Skyrim and Fallout, and can be used in conjunction with the security skill to tackle locked doors and containers. However, unlike previous Bethesda games, gaining access to higher level locks requires a sufficient number of points in the security skill to even attempt it. You can't just eventually fumble your way through a master lock like you can in Skyrim. Novice locks are attemptable by anyone, advanced locks require 1 point in the security skill, Expert Lock requires 2 points, and Master Locks require 3 points in the security skill. The art of lockpicking works just as one would expect. Throughout the world you'll come across locked doors or containers that can be manipulated to your advantage. For instance, a locked door might obstruct your path to an armory that can be used to restock ammo or medical kits, or that master level cabinet might house a rare and powerful weapon or expensive piece of armor. The security skill is ultimately an optional skill, and you're free to invest points into it or ignore it completely. I found that the security skill is really useful, and the developers have made sure that it remains useful throughout the entire game, so it's worth investing if you don't want to walk away from that mysterious locked door. The lockpicking minigame itself is relatively straightforward once you've got the hang of it. Unlike in older Bethesda titles where you had to find that sweet spot inside of a lock, this system is more akin to a layered puzzle instead. Each attempt at lockpicking consumes one digipick, and a further digipick if you undo a move. You'll be presented with a circular ring of one or more layers, depending on the difficulty of the lock and the number of keys, which you can use to plug the gaps. It's up to you to find the right key and orientation of that key. This is quite simple to start, but it becomes pretty tricky with higher level locks as you need to plan out your key selection several moves ahead. There's also an auto attempt feature which gets better the higher your security skill is and can be used to reveal solutions on the current layer, but it won't entirely solve the puzzle for you, so keep that in mind. This minigame is not bad overall and adds a nice change to the normal lockpicking in other Bethesda games, and as always, time will freeze when you're attempting these, so retry to your heart's content. We also encounter a computer terminal which allows us to interact with it and log in. Computers are often a great use of your time in Starfield, and often provide you with interesting optional lore and world building about the area you're in, or sometimes allows you to open doors or trigger defense systems remotely. After several more fights, we earn enough experience points to level up. This process will feel instantly familiar to anyone who's played any other Bethesda game in the past. As you use your skills like security to lockpick, or speech to intimidate or persuade NPCs, you'll earn experience points allowing you to level up and allocate points into the various perk trees. The perk trees closely resemble those found in other Bethesda titles, and consist of 5 distinct tracks: physical, social, combat, science, and tech. And as you'd expect, physical and combat pertain to your physical attributes and combat efficiency, where social, science, and tech influence your crafting abilities, pilot skills, and social aptitude. The progression system is fairly straightforward and offers numerous tiers within each category, each skill having its own set of ranks. So to get to the second tier of the combat tree, you'll need to allocate 4 points in the first tier and so on. The end of each skill tree offers its most fancy and interesting abilities, such as the crippling skill from the combat tree, which allows you to disable enemy limbs in combat, or the armor penetration skill, which allows you to ignore the armor of your enemies when attacking them. Starfield offers an abundance of skills in its various trees, and you'll have to create multiple characters if you want to try them all out. It's worth noting, however, that many gameplay mechanics are actually locked behind skills in Starfield. For instance, tackling higher level locks requires higher level security skill to even attempt to lockpick them, and the classic stealth awareness meter from old Bethesda titles won't even appear until you've invested points into the stealth skill. This also extends to other aspects of the game too. This approach to player progression is intriguing and well executed, but it might confuse the veteran player of the Elder Scrolls or Fallout series. The game never explains explicitly that these mechanics are gated behind progression systems, and might lead to players simply thinking that developers just forgot to add them in. As we press on, we continue to mow down more unsuspecting pirates and grab some new weapons, including a nice automatic rifle, which is exactly what I was looking for. Considering that we're only on our first mission, I've encountered an array of weapon types to choose from. Starfield definitely doesn't lack variety in its combat. This whole main mission tutorial section is a nice introduction to the story and progressively teaches you the main mechanics in an interesting and immersive way, with the classic Bethesda world building encompassing everything that you do. As we explore the facility, we can see snippets of what happened. Dead scientists littering the hallways and bloodstains on the walls. We can put 2 and 2 together and understand that the Crimson Fleet probably took this place by force and murdered everyone inside, and this extends to a lot of other locations in Starfield. Even though some of the game is procedurally generated, there's no lack of immersion or environmental storytelling. We ascend to the roof of the research facility and find ourselves face to face with Brogan, the leader of the pirate crew. Brogan demands that we surrender whatever Constellation has inside their cargo holds. Fortunately, we're presented with the option to persuade Brogan to reconsider. In this playthrough, I've decided to be a good guy, avoiding unnecessary bloodshed, and persuasion seems to be the perfect way to do that. Persuasion in Starfield follows a few simple rules. You're presented with various responses, each with their own difficulty level. The higher the difficulty, the less likely you are to succeed, though this can be increased through spending points in the social skill. What I love most about this is that each persuasion attempt maintains a direct connection to the ongoing conversation. Every option gives a unique and relevant choice, and all of the responses are individually voiced by each character, which is truly impressive. The effort put into refining the persuasion minigame in Starfield is immediately apparent, and is 1,000 times better than that terrible minigame in Oblivion. In our encounter with Brogan, we successfully persuade him to let us go by highlighting the fact that we've decimated most of his crew by this point. It would be silly for him to lose any more men because of this, and we're not going down without a fight. Fortunately, he believes us, and begrudgingly lets us go unharmed, while complaining that this conquest has cost him more than it was worth. I like this. Even though this is a relatively minor quest, and a character we might never ever see again, I feel like we've learnt a bit about him and the pirate gang that he works for. We take the opportunity to peacefully leave, no longer being chased by the Crimson Fleet, and we're free to finally proceed to the Constellation headquarters and find out more about the unusual rock that we collected earlier. Our next destination is the Jemison planet on the system of Alpha Centauri. Why is there always a solar system called Alpha Centauri in every single space game? We hop into the cockpit of the Frontier, spin up the grav drive and make our way to Constellation HQ. In an interesting touch, when we arrive at the planet, we get scanned by the local UC security, the main security faction in the system, for contraband. Smuggling and contraband are all possibilities if you want to go down the rogue trader route, but for now we'll ignore all of that and land in New Atlantis. This marks our first encounter with a major city in Starfield, and cities look and feel exactly how you'd expect them to feel in a Bethesda game. And New Atlantis, serving the capital city for the United Colonies, one of the most prominent factions in the settled systems, is no exception. New Atlantis sprawls expansively across various districts. You've got the Mass District hosting the various governmental structures, including the primary base for the UC Vanguard. The Commercial District serves as the epicenter of commerce in New Atlantis, while the Starport District functions as a citywide airport for spacecraft. There's also the Residential District and the Well, a destination we'll explore later on in the main questline. The cities in Starfield feel notably more expansive than, say, Whiterun in Skyrim, thanks to their wide open areas and division of districts, yet at the same time, the cities kinda just feel like big indoor areas rather than sprawling, bustling cities. Although I have to say, it is strange, in a good way, to experience a contemporary futuristic city in a Bethesda game. Usually we're accustomed to medieval or post-apocalyptic 60s aesthetics, and Starfield is a breath of fresh air in that respect. Almost like getting a glimpse of what cities might look like in the next 2 or 3 centuries. New Atlantis is an expansive, thriving metropolis which, despite its abundance of spaceships, holograms and other new age tech, maintains a relatable quality which I find charming. As we make our way through the bustling starport and head towards the heart of the main city, we stumble upon a lively group of people pestering the starport security staff with inquiries. In particular, a child looks to have gotten lost and is trying to find his parents. Happenings like this are commonplace in Starfield and serve to enrich the world around the player with various conversations, dialogues and small events. Each character is uniquely voice acted with their own wants and stories, and the conversation dialogue is quite extensive considering this is a scripted event that most players will just walk right past. After getting distracted at the starport, we set off to the Mass District via the train system, exploring the various buildings and sites as we go. I like the immersion of travelling manually via the train system to various locations in New Atlantis, but the act of doing this entails quite a lot of loading screens. The whole process of flying to the planet, landing on the planet, getting out of the cockpit, leaving the ship, walking to the train, boarding the train, walking to your next destination, entering a building, all involve a lot of loading screens, and you begin to feel like a rat in a well-designed maze, rather than a character travelling around a city, which is a shame. We arrive in the Mass District and make our way to the Lodge, the Constellation HQ. In particular, the rain looks really nice in this area. It's nice to see weather conditions are still a thing in Starfield, and I bet you a million credits that someone will eventually create a massive weather mod that ends up being so complicated that only the serious modders will ever figure it out. Dotted around the city are various buildings, services, shops and stories to explore, but evidently we spend a little too long soaking in the sights, and Vasco, our inherited robot companion, gets annoyed with us for dallying and hurries us along, and in a nice touch he also uses our name, like the robot in Fallout 4.
Captain Howard, everyone will be in the library, just inside. If Barrett were here, he'd probably tell you that you're part of something bigger now, and he hopes you'll make this place your home.
Finally we make it to the lodge, and as we arrive, our metallic friend introduces us and announces why we're here. Sarah, the apparent leader of the group, asks us where Barrett is, to which we reply that we're here in his place. I like this, and I immediately feel like I'm insignificant, which is a good thing at times. Barrett knows more about what's going on than I do, and is probably more helpful in this situation. It's refreshing not to have that main character syndrome everywhere we go. We tell them that Barrett gave us the artifact along with his ship to get us here, and we also tell them about the weird hallucinations that we experienced, which Sarah remarks wasn't the only time this happened. Barrett also experienced similar effects, which I assume was why he was so adamant that we come here to report our findings. Though it raises the question, do we have some sort of connection with Barrett? Will we ever cross paths again? Sarah instructs us to place the artifact into the display in the middle of the room, and suddenly our new piece connects with the two that are already there, almost like some sort of celestial puzzle piece. Sarah tells us that the Constellation are a group of explorers who have dedicated their time to exploring and understanding these artifacts, and extends the invitation to us. We gladly accept the offer and get rewarded with some Constellation issue gear, including a helmet, a space pack and a suit. Nice. After introductions, we take some time to talk to the other members of the group. We've got Walter, a successful businessman and financer of the Constellation team. Mateo, a young interesting fellow who believes in a higher purpose, or a religious motive. And Noel, a student, a scientist and protege of Sarah, the leader of the Constellation group. We get to learn a bit more about each member later on, but for now, Noel shows us around and takes us to our living quarters, the lodge within the lodge, so to speak. Inside the living quarters, we find Constellation Guide 01, an object and a book which grants us permanent full damage reduction bonuses. These essentially reward exploration around the world of Starfield and act like bobbleheads from the Fallout games. Underneath the lodge, we uncover a hidden tunnel, which contains swaths of crafting stations, but also a connection to the underground sewers of New Atlantis, so we take a look around. Inside the tunnel, we find pools of water, which have a raindrop animation on them. I'm guessing it's still raining outside and the game hasn't figured out that we're actually inside. A good old harmless Bethesda bug. From here on out, I'll be tracking each bug that I encounter, so look out for that. At the end of the tunnel, we also find an ominous looking room with what appears to be either torture equipment or cooking equipment. I can't quite tell. The table in the middle of the room seems to be full of blood splatters, but we also find a food item called Special Sauce, so who the hell knows what happened in this room. More of that wonderful Bethesda world building. Continuing the main storyline, we engage in a conversation with Sarah, who shares some exciting news about a fresh lead and another artifact. So we set off together to take a look, and Sarah becomes our companion. Companions in Starfield are more advanced than those found in Skyrim or Fallout 4. At least in the unmodded base games anyway. As you travel around the galaxy, you'll encounter numerous opportunities to encounter and enlist various companions throughout the game. The companions found in the main storyline are more fleshed out, so to speak, than the other unique or unnamed companions found elsewhere, and they'll often share insights into the current situation through unique conversation, dialogue, and comments when exploring the world. Oftentimes, this quest-specific dialogue will be relevant and extensive, and it's a nice way to enrich the world with extra flavour and lore. Each companion exhibits their own unique personality, which reflects unique dialogue and comments made when making decisions, either enhancing or diminishing their opinion of you with each choice that you make. For example, when making unlawful or rash decisions when travelling with Sarah, she'll often chastise or comment negatively if you cause a crime or make an evil choice within a conversation or a quest. Companions also have unique skills which influence your skills directly. Using Sarah again as an example, when travelling with her, your grav drive range will be boosted slightly due to her astrodynamics skill. There are a total of 4 main quest companions which can be considered the main companions, and these will have the most dialogue and story influence, and can even trigger romance options in certain situations. We'll see some of this later on. In contrast to Bethesda's older games, companions in Starfield form your crew. You'll often travel with more than one, sometimes up to 3 or 4. These crew members can be assigned to both outposts, which we'll talk about later, or as crew members on your ship. During combat and travel around the galaxy, these crew members will take their designated positions in battle and will walk around the ship, and in a lovely touch, they'll even have conversations and dialogue with one another while traveling. A bit like in Grand Theft Auto when you're driving to your next objective. The design adds a layer of realism to Starfield's companion system and enriches the story experience as you travel across the cosmos. We'll see some examples of unique character events and dialogue as we continue the main quest, and I'll highlight some of these as we experience them later on. Our next lead on the artifact comes from an individual at the Mass District in New Atlantis, specifically a member of the United Colonies Vanguard. We leave the lodge with Sarah and proceed to the nearby security center. At the reception desk, we strike a conversation with one of the officers, who informs us that the Vanguard are also hiring if we're interested. They suggest we speak to the guard captain, John Tuala, who happens to be the person we're looking for anyway. It's nice to see the game seamlessly introducing side quests to the player in a natural and immersive way while exploring the main storyline. The Vanguard questline is effectively similar to the faction questlines from older Bethesda titles, like the Dark Brotherhood questline from Oblivion. When you look closer at Starfield, you can see that it really does capture that essence of a true Bethesda game, but the design issues that plague the travel systems are sometimes a little bit hard to overlook. We inquire with Mr. Tuala about the lead concerning our next artifact, and in a nice touch, Sarah, our companion, gets involved in the conversation, which makes the whole situation feel more natural. I like this approach, and it adds a good amount of depth to character conversations and dialogue because the player isn't always the only sole focus of every interaction. Later on, we'll encounter some instances where companions can respond on behalf of the player as well, depending on the situation and who you're travelling with, which is a nice little immersive detail. Tuala informs us that a Vanguard volunteer by the name of Moara holds the information that we're looking for, and is posted in the Sol system. Hang on, Sol? The very solar system containing Earth, Mars, and so on? He advises us to visit Cydonia, a capital system located on Mars, to learn more about Moara and her whereabouts. I'm definitely excited to visit Mars. As we head back to our ship with our new information, Sarah remarks on the history of a nearby statue, giving us her thoughts and a bit of history.
Oh, I've always liked that statue. It's beautiful, isn't it? I wonder what the artist was trying to represent.
This is a nice touch, at least the first time you hear it. You'll be hearing this goddamn statue line every time you walk past it, so get used to that. Sarah also complains about getting motion sickness when we ride the train system back to the starport. These little touches are often so small that you don't even realise that they're happening. This is another great example of the small world building touches that Starfield employs. They're definitely little touches, but you'll certainly notice a world devoid of life and character if they weren't there. Before we leave, we head to the UC distribution office nearby to sell some of our items. This building is quite cool and has various robots huffing and puffing and sailing around performing various tasks. We sell our items to the lady at the kiosk, who informs us that we can't make any complaints right now because the complaint system is offline. It sounds like we're having a better day than this poor woman at least. Starfield is pretty immersive when you're not fast travelling every 10 seconds. So our journey takes us to Mars, a subterranean city of Cydonia. This city, unlike New Atlantis, is situated entirely underground within a mining base. It's pretty hot in here, I imagine. Cydonia exudes a distinct atmosphere and is a stark change from the open-air, futuristic utopia that is New Atlantis. Upon arrival, we hear a conversation among some workers discussing heat leeches, which have gotten stuck in the maintenance systems, causing a breakdown. As always, it seems to be a legal requirement for all main cities in a Bethesda game to have at least one optional conversation at the entrance to every main city. As we stroll through the base, we get bombarded by even more side quests, which I decide to place on hold for the time being. I feel like if I were to allow myself to get sidetracked by every single little detail, I'd never get anything done. This is a good and a bad thing, especially if you're a completionist. We eavesdrop on a nearby conversation between a miner and the director of a Martian mining corporation. The miner is asking for a job, and the director informs him that there aren't any posts available for the time being. I love the fact that both of these men have distinct Australian accents. You'd think 200 years in the future there would be new accents by now, but no. Mars is full of Australians.
Welcome. Nice to meet you. Name's Trevor, mining director for the Deimos mining project here in scenic underground Cydonia. I could spare a minute or two to chat.
We chat to the mining director once he's finished his conversation, and he reiterates that there's no jobs available. I reassure him that I've already overheard this, but let slip that we're actually an ex-member of the Argos mining company back on Vectera. After hearing this, the mining director proposes that he has an off-the-books task for us, but needs to prove our worth before letting us in. I'm hoping this isn't just a big ploy for the man to exploit us for free mining work, because in a Bethesda game, I can definitely believe that this man might just walk off after we give him the goods. This is another example of consistent world building. If you slowly layer little details on top of each other, the player has room to believe and get involved in the game world. This is one of the only times when playing a video game that I've actually considered the fact that we might be getting taken advantage of. I think it takes a special kind of game to subconsciously create that type of world building. The director asks us to mine him some iron ore, and we agree, if not just to see if he's going to steal my hard-earned ore. As we're ironing out the details, no pun intended of course, Sarah comments in the background about how Cydonia is severely lacking in trees and grass, and I don't disagree. Nearby I notice, above us there's a little sign, indicating how long it's been since the last incident occurred during the city, and of course we have to try it out. So, I quick save and I murder someone. In a lovely touch, the counter actually resets to 0. Well, now at least we know. So we reload our save and head down to the mining layer of the Martian city in an attempt to find some iron deposits. As we navigate deeper into the city, we can hear loud explosions coming from above, sudden ripples in the nearby rock cabin causing debris and dust to fall down around us. I'm guessing some sort of blast mining is being done above. As we continue, we hear a guard informing citizens that Cydonia has a tendency to cause depression, and to seek help if this occurs. It appears that the inhabitants don't get outside much, and I appreciate how in such short space of time we've been able to form our own immersive and natural impressions of the city. So we work on mining some iron deposits in the mine shafts, and halfway through the task, I accidentally, or maybe slightly on purpose, hit another miner with my mining laser and all hell breaks loose.
Stop right there, criminal scum! Nobody breaks the law on my watch!
Oh wait, wrong game. Starfield's crime system is fairly straightforward, and if you're familiar with other Bethesda games, you'll be right at home here. When you do something that's considered a crime, you'll get a bounty on your head with that respective faction. Commit a crime in one area of the world and it won't affect your standing with the other factions. After a bit of a kerfuffle with the nearby guards and mining robots, we get hauled away to prison, but instead we find ourselves inside an interrogation room, and in walks the commander of the Sys-Def army.
I hope you're comfortable. We have a lot to discuss.
The commander explains that he needs my help and recollects our activities up to this point, which is quite a nice world building touch and makes me feel like I'm making an impact on the world. If anyone else has experienced this, I'd love to know in the comments what else this guy says if you get to this point at a later stage in the game. The commander lets us in on his plan to eradicate the Crimson Fleet pirates who we had a brief encounter with earlier. He offers us a deal in exchange for our freedom and tells us that he wants us to go undercover to dismantle the Crimson Fleet from the inside. This isn't really a novel or exciting plot hook, but the way it's dynamically introduced to the crime system is quite interesting. Given the fact that I'm pretty broke and don't really want to pay any fines right now, I accept the commander's request. He requests that we go and talk to a nearby lieutenant for the next stage of the plan. The lieutenant informs us a bit more about the mission that we've accepted, and informs us that we need to trick the pirates into letting us join their faction, and to do that we're going to try and sell a shipment of Aurora, a highly illegal drug. This is a pretty good way of introducing the story to the player, and now I have the option to either continue this questline, and I could completely ignore it and just sell the drugs and pickpocket the cash. I quite like the way that Starfield often presents the player with a choice of stories to follow, gently nudging you along the way, but never at any point did the game force me to interact with any of its stories and systems. If you want to play your way, feel free. With our illegal drugs in tow, we head back off into the wide world where we're once again free and bountyless. Great. The SysDef commander tells us of a woman who would be able to help us to get in contact with the Crimson Fleet by using the drugs as bait. Thankfully, this woman is on the same station that we got arrested in, so we pop by and have a chat. The woman tells us that she knows of someone who can help us offload the Aurora, and we set off to find them. Along the way, we grab some marshmallows from a nearby vending machine to recover some health, only to find that food items are entirely useless in Starfield, and should be avoided at all costs. As we're doing this, a woman on the tannoy reminds everyone that a litter should not be thrown off the balconies. This kind of reminds me of that tannoy lady in Theme Hospital who blares insults at your patients.
Staff members are reminded to rest frequently.
It's the little touches. Finally, we introduce ourselves to our contact, a member of the Crimson Fleet who might be able to help us out with our Aurora shipment. I like the way this conversation is presented. You're given the option to let on that you know who Adler is working for, but at the same time you can stay quiet to avoid blowing your cover. And this is where the storyline starts to become a little bit morally ambiguous. I start to feel like I've been dropped into something a little bit out of my depth. My character isn't really someone who will do evil deeds for fun, but I've been tasked to do what I can to get inside the Crimson Fleet. Sarah also expresses her exasperation in being told to do yet another task, and I feel like this is pretty good. The tension between me, my companions, and the drug dealer is quite cool to see. Adler tells us that he's willing to help us out if we return the favour, and asks us to help him return a debt from a citizen nearby. My character isn't really someone who's going to do dirty work normally, but as I'm being forced to do it, let's see if we can get away with it without causing too much of an impact. So off we go to find our man. Along the way, Sarah collars us in the corridor and expresses her disappointment with our recent actions.
Hey, I need you to listen to me. Members of Constellation are held to the highest regard, yet you persist on making poor decisions that reflect badly upon us.
I like this. It feels like an actual companion is travelling with me, rather than some AI bot. They have their own thoughts, feelings, and agenda, and it makes me wonder how this interaction might play out if I was travelling with a less morally inclined companion. We also encounter a toilet cubicle, which we explore to find a note dropped on the floor. The note references a great serpent, which doesn't really mean anything to us right now, but it will later. This is another world-building moment. The player is rewarded for going off the beaten track and looking around. On the way, we talk to a robot cleaning the toilets who groans painfully at me. I feel that, little robot. I feel that. We confront the man that we've been told to accost, and after a little intimidation, he gives in. He tells us he hasn't got any money to pay up right now. I know the game is waiting for me to kill this man, but that's not really what my character would do, so instead, we do a side quest for some cash and pay his debt ourselves. Thankfully, we've been able to avoid an innocent man's death, and I love that the developers allow you to play this way, presenting the player with moral dilemmas and the option to circumvent those dilemmas if you're so inclined. Although the man does seem to have some weird owl powers of neck twisting. We return to Adler and he accepts the cash and thanks us for our help, offering us to join his crew, which of course we know as the Crimson Fleet. We accept and get told to find a ship known as the Astrea, but before we go I level up and put points into the persuasion skill, which increases our chances of success when persuading in a conversation. So far I've been finding myself applying skills based on what my character's needs are at the time. This feels quite natural and allows me to develop my character along with the story rather than following a set path. We leave Cydonia and travel to the moon of Europa nearby, but not before storing some of our items. Pro tip, on your ship you can store some of your items in the cargo hold, and you can even sell these items to traders on a docked planet nearby directly from the ship, so there's no need to wander around carrying thousands of tons of items with you. We arrive at Europa and get hailed by the ship, and an unknown woman informs us that Adler is actually a recruiter for the Crimson Fleet. This is a good start. She tells us that no one gets out of the Crimson Fleet alive and that she has a task for us. Aboard a nearby ship is a man named Austin Rake, who attempted to leave the Crimson Fleet and now we need to teach him a lesson. Now how the hell am I going to do that without causing a death? We travel to the ship and hail the captain, and we get presented with numerous ways to deal with this situation. We can either go pirate style and kill everyone on board, or attempt to board the ship peacefully and strike a deal. We convince the captain to allow us to board by telling him that the Crimson Fleet want this man dead, explaining that if we wanted to kill everyone on board, we would have already done so. Aboard the ship, however, is where things start to get a little dicey. We tell him that Rake, his crew member, is wanted by the pirate faction, and that the captain should deal with it himself to avoid further conflict. After a persuasion attempt, the captain agrees and a fight breaks out between the crew. This isn't exactly what I had planned. Typically, things get interesting and I get wedged in the corner by one of the crew. I have to watch while things go sour. After the dust settles, it turns out that the captain was also killed in the ensuing chaos, and now I feel pretty bad. Thankfully our target is also dead, but some of the crew managed to survive. But my efforts to solve this predicament peacefully didn't turn out well. We return to the Astrea and inform them that the task is done, and end up in the middle of a firefight between the Crimson Fleet and the Ecliptics, a group of lawless mercenaries. And this is where Starfield presents a problem in its difficulty levels. At this point I'm only level 5 and everyone else is level 15, so I die, and I die, and I die until eventually I manage to scrape by. I don't know why the difficulty decides to ramp up so suddenly here, but it's a shame because I was enjoying myself up to this point. The woman informs me that she'll vouch for me as a member of the Crimson Fleet and tells me to meet them back at their hideout, so now we're getting somewhere. But unfortunately, the location of the hideout is in level 20 space, and considering I'm only level 5, I'm not getting in there without leveling up first, so I'm completely cut off from this questline until I'm a higher level. It's a bit of a bummer that Starfield doesn't have dynamic difficulty levels, and I know other Bethesda games also follow this pattern, but I've never really encountered such a jarring difficulty jump in any of the other games, and now I'm completely prevented from continuing my adventure further. In a nice touch, the commander of the SysDef calls me back for a status report and scolds me for causing an innocent man to die. He warns me that if this happens again, we'll be kicked off the operation entirely. This is such a great moment and really solidifies the fact that our actions have consequences, and even though I try to avoid this, shit really does just happen. We'll be more careful in the future, but for now I return back to the main story. From here, we're going to complete a few more main story missions, and I'm going to skip over a few of them because otherwise this video will end up even longer than I anticipated. Although through some of these quests, we meet another member of the Constellation named Sam and his daughter Cora.
You must be the latest poor fool to get dragged into our dysfunctional little family.
These two become our companions and travel with us, although Sam won't go anywhere without his daughter, so she joins us aboard our ship too. We also encounter Emma, who joins us as a companion from another quest we left half finished, although she'll never leave until we finish that quest, so be prepared to see Emma as our new lifelong partner. Back in the lodge on New Atlantis, we get a call from Vladimir, another member of the Constellation who suggests we visit him on the Eye, a space station used by the Constellation to track down and hunt artifacts, almost like a private Hubble telescope. I wish I had one of those. Before we set off, I stop and store the rest of my items on my ship, and then do a little bit of research. In the background, I overhear Cora pestering her father Sam asking for a pet. I'm not entirely sure if we can fit 3 crew members, me, Cora, and a dog on the ship, so hopefully Sam does the right parenting thing and says no. Before we move on, we'll talk a little bit about crafting. Crafting in Starfield is a whole system in and of itself. To conduct the majority of crafting projects, you'll need to research the project beforehand, which requires you to collect and spend specific resources at a research station. Depending on the project, more complex research and crafting projects will require you to put points into specific skills in the perk tree. For example, using the gastronomy perk for specific food items, or the chemistry perk for crafting chems. To craft items, you'll require the use of specific crafting benches, ranging from pharmaceutical, spacesuit, cooking, weapon, and industrial workbenches. These workbenches can be used to craft a variety of items, including modifications to your weapons, resources and items for your outposts, food and medicine, and even upgrades to your armor and spacesuits. The research and crafting features in Starfield essentially allow you to take a more self-sufficient route, and enable you to collect, process and craft items either for yourself or to trade to others for profit. I quite like the fact that Starfield allows you to play the game exactly how you want to. Some of my favourite playthroughs in Oblivion and Skyrim are from the times when I've gone completely self-sufficient, so I'm excited to try out a similar playthrough in Starfield one day. On the way to the Eye, we stop and sell some items in town, and we get faced with the age-old Bethesda game problem, the lack of trader credits. Oftentimes, traders in Starfield will run out of credits before you can finish selling them all of your items, presenting you with the problem of either selling your stuff for cheap or just discarding it entirely. Thankfully, I found that you can actually sell your items to traders at kiosks, located on any main starport in cities, and these refresh their credits daily, so sell here to your heart's content. We arrive on the Eye and take a look at the beautiful surroundings. We chat to Vladimir, who explains that he's found a gravitational anomaly, but this time bigger than the previous ones. He tells us to go and take a look and informs that he's not able to pinpoint the location exactly, so we need to use our scanner to find out more. In our case, the game directs us to the quest destination of Procyon 3, but these destinations are randomized, so watch out when reading guides, because you might get sent to the wrong location. I like this dynamic main quest system, especially when you consider New Game Plus, which I'll explain later. It keeps things feeling fresh. We arrive at our destination and we use our scanner, and this is a good time to talk about the scanner. In Starfield, every planet and location has its own set of biomes, resources, and minerals to uncover. Each planet will offer its own set of resources to collect, so if you need something specific, you might need to travel to multiple places. The scanner can be used to scan enemies and items, as you might imagine, and doing so will provide you with a score towards fully surveying the planet. Get enough survey score and you can sell the data to a trader for credits. So exploring can be used as a profitable activity in Starfield, which is great. In our case, we can also use the scanner to pinpoint and identify disturbances, which cause the scanner to fuzz out if you're pointing in the right direction. The closer you are to a disturbance, the more the scanner freaks out. Although I found this to be mostly useless because a lot of the disturbance locations are either stupidly close or are marked as a waypoint on the map, making the scanner useless half the time. That being said, this is the point in the game where travel between landing locations becomes more prominent. I quite like walking between destinations as it reminds me of the good old days of traveling between towns and caves in Skyrim, for example, but it has a pretty divided opinion on the forums overall. It is an immersive experience to be able to leave your ship and walk to your destination, but the overall problem of each location feeling like a tile in a dungeon of fast travel locations breaks the immersion somewhat. So we use our scanner and travel to the disturbance site, which isn't far away. Upon arrival, I start to get real Subnautica vibes as we encounter what looks like an alien labyrinth, with real Lovecraftian cosmic horror aesthetics. It's almost like you're looking at something that you can't explain or put into words. We eventually find the door to whatever this place is and venture inside. Inside, this place looks gorgeous, filled with space aesthetics and nebula-like cloud patterns, and we quickly discover that this place has no gravity. This also affects our companions too, and poor Sam looks like he's really uncomfortable floating around the room. In the middle of the room we find an unusual looking cosmic entity. We eventually figure out that we need to complete a sort of puzzle, flying into each of the disturbances around the room, and they get faster and faster until the cosmic entity in the middle of the room gets powered up and the magic happens. The problem here being that eventually the requirement to get from one disturbance to the other becomes so fast that it's just easier to simply wait until one spawns next to you. Eventually we activate whatever it is in the middle of the room and get another mini cutscene of light and sound, similar to the one in the tutorial quest. Once the effect disappears, we're informed that we've unlocked the ability to use powers. Cool. Powers are basically dragon shouts from Skyrim, because obviously in a creation engine game, Bethesda just cannot resist putting dragon shouts into every game, and I'm alright with this. They're presented in a nice thematic way, and who doesn't love dragon shouts? In Starfield, you unlock new powers by going through a similar process that we've just been through. Find a temple, complete a swimming minigame, and unlock a new power. Simple. Powers range from being able to shoot out forward-facing gravity cones, basically a Fus Rodar, to being able to disarm enemies. The first power we unlock here allows us to shoot forward an anti-gravity field, which renders enemies useless. And with that, quest complete. So off we go back to the lodge to inform Vladimir and the others of what we found. From here, the main story continues with an attempt to rescue Barrett. Do you remember that guy from way back in the beginning? Well, it turns out he's gotten himself lost, so we travel back to where it all started on Vectera. As we arrive, we talk to Supervisor Lynn, who is still here for some reason, and she informs us that Vectera was attacked by pirates, and both Barrett and Hella, both of whom we met at the beginning, were captured and taken away. Even in this serious situation, Lynn still tells us how annoying and exasperating Barrett is. Seriously, I think we need a sequel to Starfield with Barrett as the main character. The story begins to get a bit serious here, with Lynn telling us how much she cares for her employees and how Barrett saved her life against the pirate onslaught. But yet again, Emma decides to ruin the heartfelt moment. We investigate the nearby mining station and find a computer which gives us some coordinates to the whereabouts of Barrett and Hella. It seems Barrett has left us a nice little breadcrumb trail. Lynn offers to join us as a companion, stating that she's in dire need of a career change, but honestly I think my ship would drop out of the sky if I had any more crew members. We travel to Nera, a dark, toxic planet, and after another walk, encounter a crashed ship with Hella nearby, barely breathing by the looks of things. He's completely out of it and high on painkillers, and tells us of an epic encounter he and Barrett had. It turns out in self-defense, Barrett tried to shoot the pirates to secure them an escape route, but instead shot the pilot and the control panel of the ship and caused it to crash. While Hella was struggling to get out of the wreckage, the pirates captured Barrett again and took him elsewhere. So we set off to find and rescue Barrett, and Hella miraculously recovers from his injuries and follows us behind. Don't question the video game logic. We follow yet another set of coordinates and travel to a nearby research outpost. We accidentally fall off a cliff, land on a pirate's head, and kill everyone around us. This is where I noticed that Starfield locations are actually quite well designed. I'm not sure if this is procedurally generated, but this outpost has a number of different entrances and even a stack of boxes pressed up against one of the walls, allowing you to vault over for a more surprising approach. During this fight, the UI decides to disappear and I can't tell if I'm targeting either an enemy or an ally. After our fall, we also contract contusions, which is one of Starfield's many injuries that you can contract while being damaged. In our case, contusions cause us to use up more oxygen when moving around. Injuries in Starfield can be identified on the inventory screen by their icon colour: purple, blue, red, yellow and orange, and can be cured by using a medical item of the same corresponding icon. Injuries can also heal themselves over time, albeit very slowly, and can be cured by speaking to a doctor for a sum of cash. I quite like this, and whenever I play Bethesda games I always mod in some sort of injury system anyway, so it's nice to see it in the base game and it works well. It doesn't take too much micromanagement and it's not too punishing to ignore it completely. We eventually locate Barrett inside the complex and find him sweet-talking his captors. Honestly, why did I even need to rescue him in the first place? The captors revealed themselves as the Crimson Fleet. If you remember earlier, we joined the Crimson Fleet in a series of quests on Mars, so we use our standing with the pirates to threaten the leader into releasing Barrett. This is a good design. It allows our choices from previous quests to be remembered and incorporated into the main questline. We eventually manage to rescue Barrett and escort him back to the lodge on New Atlantis. And just before we go in, Sam takes us aside to recap previous adventures. He's feeling a little uneasy about the temple we encountered earlier. This is one of the many interactions you'll have with companions recapping stories of previous quests, and it's a nice touch. The problem you'll discover later is that you'll have multiple companions and they won't ever stop talking to you, and it becomes really annoying very fast. And of course Emma has to be involved in this conversation too. Inside the lodge, we catch Emma deciding that walking is too mainstream and instead floats around the room. And we acquire Barrett as a new companion as he thanks us for rescuing him. Of course you can come with us, Barrett. I will eject every single member of my crew out the nearest space door to fit you in if I have to. Walter then motions us over and tells us about another artifact lead. He's holding a meeting with an unnamed seller in Neon City and asks us to join him as the muscle. This sounds like the perfect job for Todd Howard. We travel to Neon City and I've got to say, this might be my favourite location in the entire game. It has such beautiful aesthetics and reminds me of Cyberpunk 2077. The city itself is located on a mining rig in the middle of the ocean and looks incredible, even with my 50% render resolution. We land our ship and step out into the cool, rainy night and pass through the security at the starport. According to our companion, the city of Neon is known for its rampant drug trade, and exploring the city you can see why. At the gates of Neon, we stumble across a man being arrested for trying to smuggle Aurora out of the city. This whole interaction reminds me a lot of the Markarth interaction in Skyrim, where you encounter a beheading straight out the gate. At least we know not to smuggle Aurora in or out of Neon. We enter the elevator to the main city and the guards disappear. Maybe I just smell or something, who knows. As we step out of the elevator into the main city of Neon, we're dazzled by the sights and sounds. This is such a cool looking city. Neon itself is split between multiple districts, just like the other cities in Starfield, but this time they're accessible by foot. You've got the main commerce district featuring a rampant nightlife, and the bustling back streets in the Ebbside district. In a nice touch, if you select the Neon Street Rat perk at the start of the game, you'll enable unique dialogue options here in Neon, which is a lovely touch. But of course, we're here for business, so we follow our companion Walter, who directs us to his own tower in the main district. What a show off. Here we meet his wife and learn more about the plan to purchase an artifact from the seller. Walter believes the artifact is stolen, so he suggests that we do a little bit more recon before the party begins. To do this, we follow Walter's orders to check out more information about the seller and scope out the meeting place. Finding more information about the seller is simple. We talk to a nearby broker who informs us that the unknown seller has a storage container nearby. We break in and find some more information about the seller, particularly that he's not to be trusted and is in the market to sell the artifact quickly. Good to know. I really like the way that the main quest forces you to make questionable moral choices, such as breaking into another man's lockup. This is all in the name of science and exploration, so I'll let it slide. Our next destination is the meeting place, the Astral Lounge, a club nearby, so we head to scope it out. As we wander past citizens in this street going about their daily lives, I overhear various conversations, in particular one person who's complaining about having to eat fish every day. I mean, if you're living on an oil rig in the middle of an ocean planet, I can't imagine there's much else to eat, to be honest. We enter the Astral Lounge and immediately my FPS takes a beating. Considering this is an interior location, I'm surprised that the performance struggles as much as it does, but so far we've not really seen Starfield be that great in terms of overall performance anyway. We make our way over to the bar, past some NPCs doing some really questionable dancing, reminding me of my uni days, particularly this guy who looks like he's taken nearly every single drug on the planet. We chat to the bartender who looks really shady. He tells us that we can hire security for our upcoming meeting and that we can conduct it in a nearby VIP lounge. Nice. We pay him for the VIP package and as expected, he continuously tries to sell us Aurora. At least we know where to get it from now. I knew this guy was shady. This is where I really enjoyed Starfield's voice acting and facial expressions. The bartender here really does a good job of looking and sounding like a proper sleazebag, which works really well in this situation. Interestingly, if you have the cash, you can also buy a penthouse suite for your player home. But unfortunately, I'm a little bit way off the money to do that. And of course, I check out the toilets, because what would a nightclub be without the toilets? These are pretty much as you'd expect, apart from the sanitization robot who seems to be in severe emotional pain when we talk to him. We also overhear a conversation between two nightgoers, one of them telling the other to lay off on the drinks. The developers really nailed the atmosphere here perfectly, and also who the hell is eating caviar in the toilets? For our last task, we inspect the VIP lounge and hack the computer nearby, which controls the doors. This might come in handy later. Now that we have more information about the seller and complete control of the nightclub, we return to Walter to let him know that the meeting's on. Now I'm excited. We've spent a lot of time and effort getting this meeting ready, and I'm hoping it won't be a one and done conversation, and boy, yeah, I wasn't disappointed. This next bit might be my favourite part of the entire game. We meet Walter back in the nightclub and find the seller, the mysterious man with a briefcase that stands out like a sore thumb. Barrett also chips in on the conversation while an NPC materializes in front of us. Walter also tells us to confirm the seller's identity with a secret code word, Ramsey and Travers. These two being the names of English scientists who discovered neon gas. Pretty cool. We find the seller and tell him of the meeting that's taking place upstairs. Once we're ready, Walter and I take the elevator to the second floor, heading for the VIP lounge to meet the seller. The man asks if we're going to sit down, but we're the muscle of the situation, so we decide to ignore his request and keep our game face on. I love the way this quest is presented. I can't imagine that there are that many outcomes, but each step presents the player with a small choice or decision that plays into the overall narrative, and I like that. It adds to the immersion. After some hustling, the seller tries to pull a fast one on us, as we expected, but thankfully this guy isn't going anywhere thanks to our door hacking skills and the security team that we hired earlier. In the end, he coughs up the artifact and we let him leave, but not before he gets stuck on the door and takes an awkwardly long amount of time to leave. Both Walter and I celebrating our victory, but that felt a little bit too easy. Well, I was wrong, because this is where things start to get interesting. As we leave the club, another organization shows up, claiming that their big boss, Slayton of Slayton Aerospace, is here to retrieve the stolen artifact. It turns out the seller had nabbed it from Slayton and was trying to pass it on to us. Sneaky. We refuse to hand it over and intimidate the thugs, who eventually allow us to leave. As we leave the club, Walter's wife appears and tells us that Slayton has placed a bounty on our heads and impounded our ship. So with no escape in sight, we pay Slayton a little visit. Slayton's office happens to be conveniently in the same building, just a few floors up, so we head over and try and sweet talk the receptionist. She doesn't budge an inch, so instead we loiter around looking suspicious for a while. Eventually we find a keycard in an unattended room, so we grab it, thinking it'll help us break in, but this is where things get a little weird. I get spotted by the guard when trying to pick up the keycard, and to my surprise, he doesn't give the slightest crap that we've been caught stealing. It's almost like the animation gets cut off halfway through, and he resumes his normal business. I brush this off and chalk it up to being another bug, but after using the key to unlock a nearby elevator, it turns out that this was actually a trap and we were supposed to steal the key. This is a nice interaction, but the way that the guard bugs out when we steal the key in the first place just makes this whole thing feel a bit awkward. This is where Slayton reveals his grand plan. He reveals that he wanted to trap us in the elevator. Well, you got me. But in an interesting twist, Walter's wife, Issa, radios us and informs us that she's hacked the systems. She orders us to follow her instructions and we'll get out of this alive. Now this is the bit I really enjoyed, tiptoeing through the office with Walter's wife guiding us over the radio, directing us where and when to move to avoid the various security robots and armed guards patrolling the hallways as we sneak to Slayton's office. After some solid snake-style sneaking, we eventually get spotted because our companions decide to all get stuck in a doorway together. It turns out trying to sneak through an office with a cohort of about 5 people doesn't really work well. It's interesting that companions can be spotted. I would have expected the game to ignore them, but I wouldn't really consider this a bug either. A huge fight breaks out and I can barely take part because all my companions are jammed in the corridor blocking the doorway. The stealth section quickly turns into a full-blown massacre. This is also a good chance for us to test out our new anti-gravity powers, and we make short work of the guards as they float helplessly in mid-air. This whole combat sequence ends up being really action-packed, and even though Starfield's combat isn't incredible, it still ends up being really fun. After an intense showdown with about 50 guards, we finally make it to the office and confront Slayton himself. Here we're presented with an option to attack Slayton, but instead, I channel my inner Todd Howard and try to seek a more peaceful resolution. Slayton reveals that he's captured the seller from the club and leaves it up to us to decide his fate. This whole interaction is really unusual. 10 minutes ago we were mowing down every guard in our path, and now he acts like we're on his side. We confront the seller, who looks a little worse for wear, and we're presented with a choice. We can either turn him over to the authorities, let him go, or kill him ourselves. The seller reveals that he's been working with Slayton for 25 long years and was fired recently, so in an act of revenge he stole the artifact and tried to sell it for himself. I can't help but sympathise with him, so we choose to let him go, and Slayton seems happy with the outcome of the events, and allows us to leave with the artifact with no issues. This whole situation feels a little bit strange. What did Slayton get from this entire ordeal, other than a pile of dead henchmen? This is the last time we ever hear about Slayton too, and it's an oddly abrupt ending to what was a really interesting quest. But regardless, we wrap up and leave Neon City with the new artifact in tow. After leaving Neon City, you'd think that would be the end of the quest, but no, there's more. As we prepare to leave, we get intercepted by an unknown alien vessel, which looks much more powerful than we are. And this is where the overall storyline of Starfield truly begins to unravel. The unknown assailant reveals himself as the Starborn and threatens to attack us if we don't hand over the artifact. Thankfully, during our conversation, we managed to spin up the grav drives and escape. Barely. This whole story moment could have been much more exciting if my companions weren't all clamoring for my attention. As I mentioned earlier, during pivotal points in the story, you get a chance to recap these events with your companions, learning more about them and hearing their opinions. But the problem with this system is that they'll constantly ask you to speak to them over and over again, and they won't stop until you do. And the cherry on top of the cake here, after finally succumbing to Barrett's desperate insistence, he reveals that he found a chicken tikka and wanted to give it to me. I mean, seriously, was that chicken tikka so important that you had to interrupt a pivotal story moment? Now don't get me wrong, I appreciate the story development and the chance to recap events with my companions. It becomes really intrusive and happens a lot more often than I would have liked. Bethesda really does have a knack for ruining their own set piece moments. After all the excitement and frustration, we return to the lodge to recap events and deposit our newly acquired artifact. Some of the members of Constellation share their own theories of who the Starborn are and what their motives could be, from extraterrestrial aliens who've come to steal the artifacts from us, to celestial higher powers that want to protect the human race. These theories are pretty tinfoil hat worthy, but don't worry, we'll get to the bottom of it later. Our next journey takes us to the moon of Indum 3. After reading up on other players' experiences on the forums, it dawned on me that the main quest locations don't always follow the same pattern. Collecting artifacts from specific locations is actually randomized for each player, meaning that each playthrough will be unique. I quite like this, and it opens the door for every playthrough to have its own slightly different narrative, even in the main quest, which is often very static in Bethesda games. A nice touch. As we touch down, we're met with the majestic sight of a colossal planet looming overhead, its massive rings casting a shadow down over us. In the distance, we can see the icy cold star at the middle of the solar system, emanating cool blue rays of light, painting the moon's surface with a soothing hue. We take a moment to soak in the atmosphere and head to our destination nearby. As we arrive, we can see some equipment boxes, so I'm guessing somebody else is already here. Inside the cave, there's low gravity, which is pretty cool. We've seen zero gravity environments like the temple we visited earlier, but this is the first time in Starfield that I've experienced low gravity. The cave is quite large and full of autonomous defense robots, so we float our way to the bottom of the cave fighting robots as we go. This whole environment is really well done, and the cave lends itself well to low gravity by having lots of little drops that almost make the game feel like a platformer. I'm not sure if this is randomized, but if it is, well done Bethesda. We eventually reach the bottom and find another artifact. This time as we get closer, we get attacked by a mysterious entity. As we fight them, their nameplate shows that they're called Starborn. I guess these are members of the same faction of the mysterious vessel that attacked us earlier on Neon. This is a pretty difficult fight considering this guy is level 30 and seems to be able to use the same powers that we can. Eventually, we defeat the Starborn adversary and he drops quantum essence. What the hell is quantum essence? I search my inventory and find no mention of this mysterious substance. After some Google foo, it turns out that it's barely explained in the game, and you'll be lucky to figure it out without any research. Each Starborn entity drops quantum essence when killed, and you'll need to go into the powers menu located in the top of the inventory screen to see it. Using quantum essence effectively speeds up your power regeneration speed for a short period of time, effectively making it a consumable. I was hoping for something more interesting, perhaps a way to level up your powers, or as a means to unlock new ones, but no. And I never figured this out until I finished the game due to its poor explanation, so I never used this system. We retrieve the artifact and make our way to the next one. This gameplay loop of collecting artifacts and killing Starborn becomes commonplace in Starfield, and from here on out, a lot of the main quests task the player with following this loop. Collect another artifact, kill another Starborn and move on. It's effectively filler. With the absence of actual exploration and travel mechanics, it gets a little bit boring. There's no variation in it either. Every time you get attacked by the Starborn, right at the end of each cave, and there will always be a single person. It's very predictable. Our next quest after this is very similar again. Travel to a location, find an artifact, kill a Starborn, head home. Simple. Thankfully this cave is inhabited by Crimson Fleet pirates, and due to our previous affiliation with them, they don't attack us. Though they do repeat the same voice lines over and over, and part of me wants to murder them just to shut them up. So we complete a few more main quests, and at this point, I decide to see what other ships we can buy, given that we're still flying the frontier given to us at the very start of the game. Surely we can get some upgrades. In every starport, you'll find a technician who offers the opportunity for you to purchase, upgrade, and modify your ship for a cost. There are a number of preset ships available, and the majority of these are well out of my price range, so for now we'll settle on one that we can afford. Ship customization in Starfield, however, is quite expansive. You have the ability to tweak and customize various aspects of your ship, and you'll always be able to remove and swap around various parts, such as the engines, weapons, and grav drive systems. Each ship needs the basic components to fly, but after that it's really up to you. I've seen some amazing contraptions on the forums, and people have gotten really creative with their ship builds, from the Millennium Falcon to this amazing cheeseburger ship. With our new ship ready for its first voyage, we go back to the Eye and chat to Vladimir, who has another lead on yet another artifact. He informs us that a collector by the name of Captain Petrov owns a ship called the Scow. He uses the ship to collect various novelties, including another artifact. Vladimir floats the idea that we should pay the captain a visit and acquire the artifact through less than savoury methods. Although it's worth noting that this quest offers various paths to achieve your objective, the game is essentially still nudging you towards stealing something from an innocent man. Personally, I quite like this. It's refreshing to see a Bethesda game offer morally ambiguous choices in its main quest. Before we leave, Vladimir suggests that we take Sarah along with us, who seems to be having some sort of existential crisis about Starborn. In the middle of a heartfelt moment about the wonders of the universe and the potentials for humanity's first contact with an extraterrestrial race, I ruin it by trying to flirt with her. Unfortunately, she's having none of it right now. But we can't say we didn't try. So off we go to find the Scow and the artifact. We arrive at the ship and attempt to board. Unfortunately, the captain isn't one for rolling out the welcome mat, but after some persuasion, they allow us to board. We pretend that we're desperate to see the marvels of the famous Scow. The Scow is one giant cosmic carnival with all sorts of weird and wonderful oddities in every corner of its massive cargo holds and hallways. There's even some sort of zoo layer with various caged animals and beasts. I bet we could probably hack the system and let these little guys go if we wanted to. We decide to try and take a more subtle approach and try and chat up one of the guards. He informs us that Captain Petrov keeps the most prized possessions inside a vault, the only key contained on his person. Maybe we can pickpocket him. I like how each quest in Starfield offers the opportunity to go guns blazing or take the low and slow approach. While exploring, Sarah pulls off an epic stunt and catapults into the ceiling. Eventually, we find a control room and attempt to tamper with the controls, and as usual, stealth isn't my strong suit. We end up alerting the guards and all hell breaks loose. A massive fight with the guards takes place, and they weren't lying when they said this place was well defended. Considering our cover well and truly blown, we fight our way through the ship in search of the vault and Captain Petrov himself. The problem is, this ship is an absolute labyrinth and it takes a while. We eventually make it to the captain's chambers and all moral decisions go out the window. I loot everything that's not bolted down and find a few nice upgrades to my weapons and armor. In the chaos, we also get our hands on an energy pistol, and I haven't managed to try one of these out yet. Usually in these types of games, I usually stay away from these types of weapons because they feel like glorified potato shooters, but to my surprise, they pack quite a punch. They feel like what I imagine wielding a blaster from Star Wars would feel like. We continue our battle between collections and cabinets, and this whole section is actually really exciting. Glass and debris splinter and smash as we murder everyone in the room. I also noticed that Emma, our forever companion who won't leave, actually picks up a gun from one of the guards and uses it herself, and I wasn't expecting that. I've not given her a gun up to this point because I was hoping she might eventually get herself killed, but I've had no luck so far. This fight isn't a walk in the park and we face off against some pretty tough enemies. One of them, the Raptor, drops an amazing shotgun which absolutely annihilates anyone left standing. The remaining crew go down and the captain runs off like a little girl, so we chase him through the corridors. We eventually catch him and he surrenders, calling us a pirate. Technically I am a pirate, but I do kind of feel a bit bad here. This guy hasn't done anything wrong, and we're effectively obliterating his entire collection of both armed guards and oddities. This guy is pretty hilarious though. He reminds me of Gru from the Minion movies.
Oh, don't worry about the mess. I'm sure we can find a place to put the bodies.
The captain succumbs and allows us full access to his ship. Probably a smart move on his part, and we search the vault. Sarah collars us for another heartfelt chat about recent events, and I skip through this one as quickly as I can because I'm not really in the mood for a heartfelt conversation right now. Another example of how the companion system can be too intrusive for its own good. Back on the upper levels, it seems the captain has made himself at home again, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. He didn't take any time to try and get himself out of the situation, but just instead starts casually posing on the sofa. I can't fault the man. We finally find the artifact in his personal vault, grab it and head off. As we arrive back at the lodge, there seems to be some trouble afoot. The eye has gone dark along with the people aboard, and suddenly Vladimir hails us over the console, telling us that the Starborn are attacking. He informs us that they attack the station and are en route to the lodge. Suddenly, an unknown entity intercepts the communication and introduces himself as the Hunter, one of the Starborn, and tells us he's on the way to kill us. Great.
Hello, Constellation. Are you there?
Who are you? What did you do to our friends?
This is an intense story moment and presents the player with a choice. Do we stay at the lodge and protect our friends, or do we leave to rescue those aboard the Eye? We decide to stay and prepare for a fight while our friends gather the artifacts and prepare to make an escape. Eventually the Starborn arrive, but not through the front door, that would be too simple. We hear the sounds of struggling in one of the back rooms and find Walter being strangled to death. A fight breaks out, but this guy is way too strong for any of us to reliably fight back, so we hold him off and make our escape. This is a nice scene, and amidst the chaos we can hear our friends frantically trying to gather the artifacts while all hell breaks loose upstairs. After a few long moments, we all begin to make our escape through the tunnel we explored earlier. I knew this place had a purpose. We finally make it out, including Vasco, the robot, and Emma, who still wants to follow us despite being chased by celestial gods with a serious attitude problem. After a pretty awesome battle, we finally make it out into the cool night air of New Atlantis, but all hell is still breaking loose on the streets. The atmosphere here is really great, and we can see the Starborn attacking the fleeing citizens while the guards desperately try and fend off the threat. Now remember this part of the game because it'll be massively important later on. We make it back to the ship and head straight to the Eye to find out what happened to our friends. As we arrive, we find Sam on the floor. Upon closer inspection, we find that he's actually dead, which surprised me. Considering this is a Bethesda game, I was quite surprised at how much of an impact the main story actually has. We say goodbye to Sam and leave his daughter to mourn his body and check on the others. Vladimir is fine, thankfully, and Barrett is too. Thank the heavens that Barrett survived. I'd have to restart the game if he'd been killed. This quest is quite interesting, and the companion that dies here is actually dependent on your choices thus far. If you choose to stay and defend the lodge, you'll lose someone on the Eye, and who dies depends on your relationship with each companion. This moment is also pretty important to some interesting plot twists later on, but for now we'll move on. As a group, we discuss what we're going to do about protecting the artifacts, and we're presented with two choices. We can either set them down in an outpost and defend them, or we can leave them on our ship. I choose the latter and we move on. We return to base to regroup and mourn the death of Sam, and as we make our way to the lodge, the city is still on red alert. Quite literally, the streets lined with guards, dead bodies everywhere and little robots trying to clean up the rubble. This is a really nice moment and shows off just how far Bethesda quests have come in the last few years. Seeing the aftermath of the previous fight and the whole city visually affected by it was great. Even some of the citizens and guards have new unique dialogue referencing the recent tragedy.
There's been an incident.
Pardon?
Please continue going about your business.
Even though Starfield does have some quirks and odd moments, it's definitely improved its main quests compared to previous titles. This next section is pivotal to the story, and honestly, I didn't enjoy it at all. In summary, Matteo suggests that we should talk to various religious leaders in an attempt to learn more about the Starborn. We meet a man named Keeper Aquilus, who tells us the tale of a pilgrim who set out long ago to search for the true meaning of unity. I started to drift off at this point, because honestly there's so many different plot threads and character names referenced in such a short space of time that none of it really makes an impact. We talk to various people in New Atlantis, and uncover a location which Keeper Aquilus refers to as the final resting place of this mysterious pilgrim. This is all a bit much, and honestly I don't enjoy this section of the game at all, but I do like the facial animations of this guy. There's such a huge step up from the orcs in Oblivion. The story begins to take a more complicated turn, and although this is quite extensive, the whole thing is told over the course of about 3 conversations with various NPCs, and really just feels like no effort was put in at all. I don't feel any connection to the story. Thankfully for us, our destination is only 1 jump away from New Atlantis, which is nice. The biggest mystery in the universe, and it's on our doorstep. How convenient. We land at Pilgrim's Rest and find some journal entries in another location, and now I feel like I'm on an Easter egg hunt. Eventually, after a few more jumps, we get intercepted by a Starborn ship. In an interesting twist, they don't attack us, but instead invite us on board for a chat. The inside of the ship looks amazing. It looks like something straight out of Warframe. I wonder if we can get a ship like this. The 2 Starborn introduce themselves as the Hunter, the Starborn who attacked us back on New Atlantis, and the Emissary, who turns out to be the one that attacked us in the beginning on Neon City. The Starborn tell us they're not a race or a culture, they're their own unique entities with their own agendas and goals. The Emissary tells us that we're close to understanding the secrets of unity, and that the universe is actually a collection of multiverses. In an unexpected twist, the Emissary actually reveals himself as Sam. Wait, what? Sam who just died? The Hunter also reveals himself as Keeper Aquilus, who helped us get here. And now I'm really confused. The story is progressing really fast. The Starborn explain that the artifacts hold the key to the multiverse, and enabled the 2 of them to travel between parallel universes. Sam died in our universe, but the Emissary tells us that in his universe, we died in Sam's place. This is turning into some real Doctor Who shit. One can become a Starborn by collecting all of the artifacts and crossing over into a parallel dimension. Like I said, this story is told in a really quick and uninspiring way, but the general idea of it is actually quite captivating. Both the Emissary and the Hunter suggest a ceasefire and argue about which one of them is right. The Emissary believes the artifacts must be controlled and contained to prevent chaos and destruction, while the Hunter believes that anyone with the power to collect these artifacts should be rewarded for it. The Emissary then gives us a key and tells us the location of another artifact on the moon of Old Earth. Although I'm a little bit confused, why are the Starborn suddenly helping us? People in Starfield really change their minds quickly. This place looks exactly how you'd expect the moon to look. Looking up in the sky, we can see the Earth itself in all its glory, and in the distance, we can also see the Milky Way Nebula, which is pretty awesome. Inside a base on the moon, we listen to an old voice recording which references an old NASA space station on Earth, so we head there. After another small journey, we land on Earth and are greeted to what looks like a launch station, which used to be owned by NASA, in the middle of a desert abandoned in dust, dirt and sand. We eventually make our way to the top of the tower and find a power cell to power up the nearby elevator, taking us down into the depths of the station itself. We descend into the bowels of the station, and honestly, this could be one of the most gorgeous looking places in the entire game. The whole place is rammed with various references to space, Earth and NASA. Exploring the station reveals replicas of the lunar rover and various references to other research projects, including Project Gemini, which I'm pretty sure is a bad movie from last year. While exploring the tower, we uncover a book called Oliver Twist, which references an old landmark on Earth. I love how the developers have gone to the trouble of leaving little landmarks and breadcrumb trails. Throughout your time in Starfield, you'll be able to uncover a few more of these landmarks, pointing towards other unique Earth locations, including the Shard in London, Cairo, New York and even St. Louis. We fight our way through various security robots which must have been left behind, and the lower levels have a distinct lack of gravity, getting stronger and deeper as you go. Exploring this area almost felt like exploring a sunken ship or a submarine. The level design works really well in this area, allowing the player to navigate floors by floating up and down the elevator shafts. Eventually we uncover a voice recording between 2 scientists which explain that the humans on Earth were testing the effects of grav drive, suggesting that things went horribly wrong. Dotted around the station, we can also find other tidbits of visual storytelling, such as a dead scientist in one of the control rooms. Bethesda really do know how to do subtle world building and storytelling. The general gist of the story here is that the scientists on Earth used an artifact to enable interstellar travel through the use of grav drive technology, which ended up costing the human race their home, and now Earth lies a desolate and dusty graveyard. We eventually make our way to the grav drive testing area and reclaim the artifact, causing the gravity fluctuations to dissipate. As we grab the artifact, we're attacked again by a number of Starborn soldiers. This part felt really cool because now we're fighting our way back out of the NASA space station, fending off the Starborn enemies, and the whole level design changes due to the re-emergence of the gravity, requiring us to find a different way out. It's good when developers manage to reuse parts of a level in new and unique ways through the change of mechanics and effectively presenting 2 levels in one. This is really good level design. We eventually make our way up to the Earth's surface and come face to face with the emissary and the hunter. Seeing both of their ships next to each other in full size really puts into perspective the power that these cosmic entities have. Both Starborn lament on the destruction of Earth and suggest that we need to make a choice. Do we want to side with the hunter or the emissary? Do we believe that the artifacts should be controlled for the safety of the universe? Or do we believe that anyone should have the right to use them if they're strong enough to take them by force? In the end, I decide to make my own choice and go with neither of them, but unfortunately by doing that, we've now made 2 enemies, which I imagine I'll regret later. But for now, the Starborn tell us that there's one more artifact to collect, and with that, they leave and await us at the final destination. Choosing sides here is an important choice. Depending on which side you choose will impact the story and the final battle, but we'll get back to that later. We finally get back to the lodge where the rest of Constellation are having a memorial service for the death of Sam, although the preparations are being made and will take some time. So we go to bed for a solid full 5 days and wake up refreshed for the funeral. The ceremony begins for poor Sam and even Emma attends. Each member has an opportunity to say a few words. We have the opportunity to speak too, but this is basically just story fluff. Barrett tries his hardest to get to the podium, but sadly can't navigate his way around a chair, so we give up and leave. Once the funeral is over, we reveal to everyone that Sam is in fact alive. We blow their tiny minds with the revelation of the multiverse and the Starborn, and this is a bit of a weird series of events, considering one moment we're at a funeral, and the next we're discussing the mysteries of the universe. In search of the final artifact, we arrive at a faraway solar system, and receive a distress signal from the nearby Nishina research station. And this begins one of the final and probably my favourite story missions in the whole game. We head on over to check it out, and when we arrive, things look normal. We go to the front door and a voice greets us on the intercom. The camera freaks out while this happens and the whole cutscene gets presented from a pretty unsettling angle. We inform the guard that we're a member of the Constellation group, which convinces him to let us in, but he orders our companions to stay outside. A little ominous, but okay. We go in alone. The guard tells us he'll be escorting us to the director's office, and suddenly something really weird happens. As we're walking down the hallway, the whole world shimmers and fades away. If you've ever played Silent Hill, you'll be right at home here. The alternate dimension looks completely different, with unusual organic matter covering the floors and the walls and unusual looking alien life scattered around. The juxtaposition between the mundane, normal looking research facility completely fading away into a nightmarish abyss is a really stark change to the narrative in the game that we've seen so far. As we explore, we quickly come to the realization that this place is an exact replica of the research station. Are we in an alternate dimension? Did we take too much Aurora? Suddenly we get attacked by the Cataxi, a race of gooey bug-like aliens with long arachnid legs and spiky scorpion-like tails. These things aren't particularly dangerous, so we manage to kill them without much trouble, but as we do, we get pulled back into the real world. What the hell is happening? The guard with us freaks out and asks why we disappeared into thin air. Why do we have our gun out? Who were we fighting? Well, Ethan, I know about as much as you do, I'm afraid. Because we selected the Beast Hunter trait at the beginning of the game, we get a unique dialogue to explain that the alien life forms that attacked us were the Cataxi. The guard accuses us of using stealth technology, and we quite rightly point out if we had stealth technology, we wouldn't be using it to stand here in the middle of the hallway. Continuing through the corridor, I noticed that there aren't any restrictions on stealing items. Usually if an item is in a public place, it'll be marked with a little red icon telling you that it would be considered theft to pick it up. Weirdly though, in this station there's none of that, so I'm guessing that the developers have used some sort of spaghetti code to put this level together, overlaying the two maps somehow. There are a lot of situations like this in Starfield, when you can tell something is happening by how the interaction with the world breaks slightly. Such as in previous quests, if you were required to uncover something en route, the fast travel system would mysteriously stop working. We eventually get shifted back to the alternate dimension and meet with a man called Raphael, who emerges from under the table for some reason. He tells us about an incident which happened 3 months ago, which caused the whole station to be destroyed and everyone to be killed, except him. He's been stuck here until we arrive. Halfway through the conversation, we get teleported back to the real world again, and by this point, the guard has just had enough of our shit, and just accepts the fact that we disappear from time to time. This is where the bugs and frustrations begin. For some reason during this quest, and only this quest, my game starts to softlock nearly every time I enter the inventory, causing me to have to reset my game. This wasn't a big deal the first time it happened, but it really killed the mood after a while. We reload the game and retrace our steps. We freak out the guard, we meet Raphael, we kill a few aliens and eventually make our way to the director's office. We meet the director herself and the chief scientist named Maria, another Silent Hill reference perhaps. They tell us that the Nishina research station was built to research the artifact they discovered, which I'm willing to bet is the artifact that I'm looking for. This is a nice conversation because we have the knowledge of the other artifacts we've collected up to this point and we know what they can do. We tell the scientist and the director about the power of the artifact, and this is cool because we're the expert on the subject. We explain that this might be why the distortions are only affecting us, because no one else here has interacted with these artifacts. They tell us of an experiment that was conducted 3 months ago, involving an artifact which went horribly wrong, causing an explosion to happen in the lower levels of the facility. Unfortunately, due to damage, no one has been able to shut off the experiment, and this is where we come in. Using our extensive knowledge of the artifact, we suggest that we'll go down into the depths of the lab, through the alternate dimension, and switch it off. The chief scientist Maria tells us that she might be able to do some technical wizardry to help us swap between dimensions at will. We follow her to the lab next door and get whisked away to Silent Hill again. We tell Raphael about the plan and end up getting the inventory bug again, which causes us to have to reload. We retrace all of our steps again, which takes a few minutes, and eventually we meet Maria. She gives us a tool which allows us to manipulate travel between dimensions by using little spots of cosmic energy dotted around the facility. I know, things are getting a bit complicated here, but bear with me. Effectively, now we have the ability to swap between dimensions at will, and set off on an adventure between the 2 dimensions to get down into the depths of hell, or something like that. The problem here though is that this place is an absolute labyrinth, and it takes me ages to find out where to go. The local map in Starfield is absolutely useless and doesn't help at all. Our scanner usually has a handy feature which allows us to see where we need to go, but in this facility it doesn't work at all, which I'm guessing is also due to the alphabet soup of code that the developers used to make this quest work. After more wandering, we accidentally break into Ethan's office, and he remarks that the door was locked. I think we're really ruining this guy's day. We persuade him to give us a cool weapon, and he gives us a shotgun which absolutely kicks ass. This gun is a huge upgrade. So far, this quest is really good. The use of an interesting and unique teleportation dynamic to swap the player between the normal and the abnormal is a great idea. It reminds me of that painting quest from Oblivion. This is when Bethesda games really start to shine. Before we make our way into the depths of hell, we speak to the director one last time, and she informs us that when we eventually get to our destination, we'll be faced with yet another choice. We can choose to save only one dimension. We have to pick between saving Raphael and his Silent Hill dimension, or the real world and the 30 people working here. In another nice touch, going back to the director's office in the alternate world shows a skeleton sitting at her desk. I wonder if this is the aftermath of what happened. Is this what will happen if we make the wrong choice? We eventually find the elevator to take us down into the depths below, and I notice another inconsistency on the mechanics here. When you shift between dimensions, you'll encounter enemies that only exist in one world and vice versa. The alternate dimension is full of alien creatures, but unusually, if you hover over an enemy that isn't there, your reticle goes red, suggesting that they are there, but they're invisible until you switch dimensions. Down in the depths of the facility, we continue to explore. We find a keycard in Silent Hill which allows us to open a door in the real world. An easy but cool little puzzle which uses the teleportation mechanic really well. Going deeper still into the facility, we get faced with robot enemies and turrets which attack us. Now the mechanics begin to shift somewhat. Before, the alternate dimension was dangerous and the real world was safe, and now both worlds are dangerous. I get hit by the inventory bug again and have to reload again, and thankfully I quick saved before this so I didn't lose that much progress this time. This is where things become more frustrating. Inside the facility is a teeny tiny tunnel that we're supposed to go down to get to our destination, but it's hidden away in the corner of a room that I completely missed, and I spent a good half an hour trying to figure out where I was supposed to go. This is just classic Bethesda game design. An amazingly intricate and exciting scenario, one of my most favourite moments in the entire game, turned into a frustration with tricky level design and game-breaking inventory bugs. Finally, I turn to Google and find the tunnel I missed earlier, and shortly afterwards we get annihilated by a level 36 robot out of the blue. This guy is way stronger than any other enemy in the area, but for some reason my unprepared ass gets handed to me and we reload again. By this point, I'm pretty frustrated and I just want this to end. We continue and encounter some weird textures and a book flying across the room, and some enemies who teleport behind me while I'm trying to shoot them. We eventually make it to our destination, a large facility with a big machine in the center of the room. Here we have to make a choice. Do we kill 30 people and restore the world to normal, or do we save Raphael? In the end, I decide to save Raphael, otherwise he'd be stuck down here in Silent Hill and probably starve to death eventually. We shut down the machine and grab the artifact. Raphael thanks us for saving him and asks us why we did it. Honestly, I'm not sure, I just wanted to see what would happen. We finally leave the station and take a look around, and honestly I feel like Bethesda missed a trick here. There could have been some really cool alternate ending to this whole thing, but you just never see any of this ever again. So off we go, slightly confused and frustrated, but now we've got Raphael as a follower too. Cool. So after that intriguing and frustrating detour, we successfully add the final artifact to our collection. It's time for us to journey onwards towards the final quest and our final showdown with the Starborn, and one that will reveal the final true meaning of Unity. Our destination awaits in the Masada system, a few jumps away, and as we arrive, we're hailed by both the emissary and the hunter in their respective ships, marking the beginning of one of the most difficult and hectic missions I've ever played in a Bethesda game. As we arrive in the star system, we're greeted to an unusual red mist enveloping the area, quite fitting. The hunter hails us from their ship and the emissary from theirs. The Starborn recollect our previous conversation when we told them both that neither of them were right, and they both let us know that they're looking for a fight to claim the artifacts for their own. Thankfully, we're presented with one more attempt to try and persuade them to change their minds. Unfortunately, we fail the persuasion check and are forced into combat with both the Scorpius and the Helix ship, and both captains have a small entourage, making that 4 ships in total that we have to fight, and my god, these ships are no pushovers. I've barely done any space combat during my time in the game so far, and we're far from equipped for combat. So we die, and we die, and we die, and I think in the end I counted over 10 deaths before I gave up and put the game on easy mode. The problem I have with space combat in Starfield is that it's often optional and very easy to skip, but then you'll face a moment that forces you into an unwinnable situation. My skills aren't focused on space combat, and I can barely fly, let alone dogfight. I don't feel like I'm cheating here, but I don't think I'd be able to finish this part of the quest without changing the difficulty. And in my opinion, leaving and coming back with stronger weapons and better equipment would defeat the whole idea of experiencing the game at your own pace. Even after I put the game on easy mode, it still kicked my ass a couple times, but we eventually managed to take down all 4 ships. This is where I start to regret not picking a side because this final mission becomes so much harder. Once both ships are blown out of the sky, we receive a marker to visit a nearby planet and prepare for the final showdown. I swap the game back to normal mode and head on down for one of the biggest boss fights in Bethesda history. The final battle takes place among an ecliptic mercenary base on the planet of Masada 3. What happened here? Why are there so many dead men littering the floors? Did the Starborn do this? I don't think I ever got an answer to any of these questions. We scavenged for as many supplies as possible because of course I forgot to stock up, and I'm desperately in need of med packs. In our first test, we get attacked by Guardian Musa, a Starborn general and an array of Starborn and eclectic soldiers. This is where the combat of Starfield really gets a chance to show off, and honestly I'll say that it's fine. It's a mishmash of Fallout, Borderlands and Warframe in some respect, but really it's just a resource management game against bullet sponge enemies, and the final mission serves to showcase that well. You're never really outskilling your opponents, you just kill things until you either run out of ammo or medpacks. Eventually, after a hard fought battle, Guardian Musa goes down and we move on. We navigate through an underground tunnel onward towards our next destination in the buried temple, whatever that is. Although this place looks more like a construction site than a temple to me. As we fight more Starborn and ecliptic soldiers, a lot of the enemies here are low level and go down in 1 or 2 hits, but there's a lot of them to mow down, and I really have to say, this is where the combat in Starfield starts to shine. Give me a lot of enemies that I can kill in 1 or 2 hits and the gunplay starts to feel weighty and visceral, as opposed to stronger bullet sponge enemies. This is something the game should have leaned into a bit more in my opinion. After some more fighting, I finally realised that the second Starborn Guardian actually has the ability to raise soldiers from the dead, which is why they're so weak, but still an enjoyable fight nonetheless. We navigate through the interior of the base and find a lovely old earth shotgun that has the ability to stagger opponents and continue the fight. Inside we find balls of cosmic energy, similar to the ones found inside the temples and the research facility we saw previously. The cosmic energy transports us to the very beginning of the game where we meet Hella and Lynn in the tutorial quest. This is pretty cool and almost feels like a tiny bit of nostalgia and reminds me of how far we've come. After a short sequence, we get transported back and are attacked by 2 more Starborn generals, who seemingly have the ability to control the security defenses, because every single robot and turret in the room begins to attack us. This part is actually really tough and I really start to run low on resources. It's possible to disable the defenses here to make things easier, but the control room is actually locked by a master level lock, so that idea goes down the drain. After a long and hard fought battle, the generals go down and drop a key to the control room. Although when we go back to see what's inside, I actually noticed there's a keycard to this room on the outside nearby, so if we weren't panicked during the previous fight, I would have noticed this and been able to shut off the robots. I can imagine the developers laughing at me here. Good joke. We go through more time travel and get transported to the museum vessel from earlier and meet Captain Petrov again. This is weird, I feel like I've gone back in time to meet a ghost, but technically he's still alive. He laments and tells us that we're a liar and a thief, which I can't really argue with, to be honest. Although I'm pretty sure there's no way to get through this quest without ruining this man's life, so hey ho. He starts spouting celestial nonsense about unity and then attacks us, so we give him a taste of the old earth shotgun and then leave. Next we get transported to the Eye, where we see Vladimir cradling a body in his arms. Is this a flashback to when Sam was killed? Upon closer inspection, we actually come to realise that this is our body, dead on the floor. It seems that this might actually be the emissary's vision of what happened, as he also references the fact that we died in his place on his universe. I don't know, wibbly wobbly timey-wimey stuff. Vladimir eventually notices us and looks up. He looks startled and confused, but we tell him that we're here from an alternate dimension. Interestingly, we get the option to attack Vladimir here, but instead we tell him that we come in peace. We tell him the Constellation has no need to worry and that they'll get through this together. This is quite cool. I already feel like I'm a higher power and I feel like I have important and forbidden knowledge of the universe. Are we already Starborn? We leave the area after confronting Vladimir, take an elevator downwards and witness Emma taking the short route. I'm guessing she's too cool for elevators. Thankfully, at the bottom of the chasm lies another cache of well-needed supplies, which is very much appreciated because I'm really starting to run out of medkits. Don't you love it when games leave an obvious amount of resources to prepare you for upcoming tough battles? We encounter yet another Starborn Guardian, and this time they have the ability to duplicate clones, who then attack us. This bit is really difficult and I die a few times trying to figure out why I'm taking random unavoidable damage, and I never really figured it out. The trick here is just to mow down the Starborn as fast as possible before you get killed. And finally, after countless deaths, some frustrations and short trips to alternate dimensions, we arrive in the final chamber for the final battle between the Starborn. We get yet another chance to persuade them here, and I fail this too. I wonder if it's even possible to succeed, and I'd love to know what happens if you actually do. Either way, we're forced to fight, and this part is actually really well done. The battle takes place over multiple universes and timelines in a three-way battle to the death. This is nothing like anything I've ever seen in a Bethesda game. Although the fun does start to wear off after I'm so low on resources and have to start cheesing the fight just to make it out alive. But that's what you get when your combat system boils down to the amount of ammo and medkits that you have left. It cheapens the overall experience, and the only way I can describe it is if you imagine in a horror game, the scariest part of a horror game is that part where the suspense is at its maximum. It should be the game's job to keep that suspense level high. If you see that big bad monster, or you die, the suspense is lifted and replaced with frustration, which kills the mood. It's the same thing here in Starfield. The set piece moments are great, but eventually you'll run out of resources and all the fun is just replaced with annoyance. During this final fight, we show down with the Starborn while being transported between various locations in our past, including inside the Lodge, the NASA space station on Old Earth, inside the club on Neon, and even New Atlantis. This part is really cool, and I love revisiting older areas. This whole fight really serves to cement the fact that we're really slowly becoming Starborn. The world is now just our playground, and this is a really cool concept. It would be so much more enjoyable if I wasn't quick saving, dying, and reloading every 10 seconds. There was one part here that I really did enjoy. Going back to the streets of New Atlantis to continue the fight. In a really nice twist, we end up chasing the Starborn while fighting through the streets of scared and fleeing citizens and fending off the New Atlantis guards. This was the moment for me that I realized that we'd actually become the enemy. The roles were reversed from what we were experiencing earlier, and now, instead of the one running, we are the ones chasing. This moment was awesome. Finally, in the NASA space station, buried in the desert of Old Earth, we vanquish our foes. With both the Emissary and the Hunter dead, they both drop a nice legendary weapon, which is cool, but sadly they're both energy weapons. Why can't I get a nice legendary ballistic weapon? We collect one final artifact in the wake of our enemies and head back to our ship. The game then informs us that to progress to the final mission we have to be ready, so we power up the grav drive with the artifact complete and travel towards Unity. Suddenly we get transported to the end of the line, in front of what looks like the center of the universe. I'm getting real No Man's Sky vibes here. Inside this swirling mass of universe, we see ourselves and we approach. Todd Howard in all his glory. Oh, how I wish I'd made my character look like Todd Howard. He, or should I say we, inform ourselves that we have a choice. We can either walk away and pretend like this never happened, or we can step inside and become Starborn, destined to travel the multiverse in search of the artifacts forever. Todd then shows us snippets of our past and future. He asks if we regret anything in life, and honestly, I think we did quite well. I do regret ruining Captain Petrov's ship, but we didn't kill him, so I consider that a win. Todd explains that if we leave this universe behind us, the people of the settled systems will be free. The Constellation Group will continue their research and will spread their discoveries and knowledge across the stars. We decide to leave this life behind, and essentially this acts as a lovely ending and immersive way to introduce us to New Game Plus. As we leave, we get an awesome view of a space nebula unraveling as the credits roll. And this is a pretty awesome ending, I've got to say. After the credits roll, we're born anew, this time piloting a Starborn ship and wearing a full set of Starborn gear. We finally uncovered the greatest mystery of the universe and became Starborn ourselves. The game drops us off at the end of the tutorial, which I really appreciated, and directs us to the lodge to meet the members of Constellation. Inside the lodge, we're greeted by Sarah and all the other members, and we introduce ourselves as Starborn, which freaks them out. The main quest from here is essentially the same, collecting artifacts and fighting other Starborn to continue the cycle forever. But in a lovely touch, depending on your luck, you might get a slightly different version of the universe. There's about 10 different versions to experience, from having all members of the Constellation replaced by children, the arsehole Walter timeline who actually sells you pieces of the artifacts rather than you going to collect them, and even an alternate timeline where the hunter kills everyone and directs you to the artifacts himself. Ultimately, the game is pretty much exactly the same. Travel the stars, collect artifacts, do side quests, and level up. It's up to you how you want to play a Bethesda game, so go out there and be whoever you want to be and do whatever you want to do. Overall, Starfield is a mixed bag of experiences, with a lot of good, a lot of frustration, and a lot of bad points overall. In terms of its polish and stability, I'd have to say that it's probably the best and most stable Bethesda game I've ever played, at least on release. And the only time I've ever experienced game-breaking bugs was in the Entangled mission with that god-awful inventory bug. The other bugs are classic Bethesda, and I'd be sad if they didn't exist. Starfield offers much of what any other Bethesda game would offer. Endless gameplay choices, exploration, story, side quests, combat, puzzles, and so on. Even with the lackluster exploration and space travel aspects, Starfield is well worth a play. Even with this extensive look at the game, I feel like I've barely even scratched the surface, and a few years from now when the game has had a couple of patches under its belt, and mods are in full force, this game has the potential to become another Bethesda forever game, and I really hope it does. So thank you for sticking with me until the end. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And as always, happy artifact hunting.